Okay, so this is your friend Chaz, and I'm going to talk about the Hokusai History. As Hokusai History, Occupy Wall Street. That was interesting speaking so close to the mic. We will see how that sounds. I listened to it just a little bit right now, and I'm like, you know what? That's not. Yeah, it is what it was. It is what it was. My parents are should be arriving about 4, so I have about one more hour to do, and then I'll have to go pick them up from. They took a rental car up north, pick them up from where they're at right now, or where they're going to be by the end of this. We are going to go through my documents now. I'll have to do 7 an hour, give or take, to get through 20, which should give us the narrative of Occupy Wall Street. The last video, I gave that story, but it was an interesting story that I gave this kid a ride across country. He told me about Occupy Wall Street. I went and had the experience with a girl that we were both competing for, and then when I see him in Occupy Wall Street now, he goes and has an experience with a girl that I was, not that we were competing for, but out of all the people I met in Occupy, and maybe even in New York, she could have been like a really good one. I had nothing to go on. We stopped associating. We weren't even really friends. She was cute. She was what seems to be my although I've been with a lot of different types, were like small, petite. She, great ass. She was a model, figure model. So these anarchist jobs where you just pick up cash randomly, taking your clothes off for a bunch of art students, but you feel confident with yourself and your sexuality that way, which are like the experiences I've had. I need someone who's confident with himself and their sexuality. Well, I don't. I could, but do you want to be teaching every single new partner you have? And then, but no, it was just a vibe. We passed each other in the hallway at our little anarchist meetings, and she'd just linger and a smile. I'd say a stupid joke, and she'd laugh at my stupid joke. There's no reason why anyone should be laughing at that, but just that little thing, and we just like. And then the dude was like, yeah, she's kind of into you if you're. That's how you do it with the social groups and the friends. When I'm not such a loner and I'm actually socializing with people, it's like you put the word out, hey, so what's up with so and so. So I think he called it out, or he told me, you kind of into so and so. I was like, yeah, she's really cute. I really like her. I like her style. He was like, yeah, she kind of. I think he didn't tell me she was into me. I think he said that you should try to go after, because he was her like best friend. They were besties. So like he kind of like gave me the green light, like, yeah, I think you probably like that. That's probably a good idea if you try to do that. So the unspoken thing was like she probably like told him like, hey, what's up with that dude? It was like similar on both sides. But I saw her in the park with this dude that I spent the half the country driving across country, so I already knew his angle, and I knew how he approaches girls, and I was like, yeah, no, that one's. And then they were dating shortly afterwards. After I saw them in the park, I was like, yeah, no, similar taste. That guy's gonna lock that down. And that's another thing, is they might be happy right now. You can't, what your preference for tasting the rainbow of everything life has to offer in terms of pursuit is going to mean that you cock block a bunch of like happy couples. I'm still wondering if I'm going to be a happy couple, or if I'm going to be just sampling through the rest of my life. So if so, and someone has a real relationship, you got to respect that. Selfless love. You want people to be happy. There's plenty of single people out there to have fun with. But this one, you think about those ones that got away. She, like I could tell the girl from the cross-country trip, if we were going to hook up, it's just going to be a hookup. There's a lot of reasons why. Just from the more people you meet, the faster you're able to put people in or out of your type. You have an open mind, because sometimes you're proven wrong, or you're like, oh wow, this is something I didn't even know I liked. But when the girl started giving me her bullshit, I pretty much saw it coming a mile away. But with this, I'm trying to find if that's zen or peace or wisdom or what it is. But this anarchist girl, I got a lot of that. Just our little hallway passings and just the groups that we were in. She just had a lot of peace to her, a lot of fucking calm strength. I really like that. So we have, what do we have? 55 minutes, and we have 7 documents divided by 55. That's about 8 minutes apiece. We could do this. We'll just have to be watching the clock. So by minute 12 or 13, we will be done with the first one. The raid videos. raid videos. Let's watch this. We're not gonna watch them all. So I put these up. These are from. I should speak on that. How many people were living in the park when it was raided? There were about 200, give or take, and you see that there's about 200 arrests that night. How many people? Well, let's scale outwards. How many people were in the Occupy Wall Street movement? Tens of thousands, maybe. There are easily over 1,000 cities which had occupies. They had one in Redlands and Loma Linda, the same city that I stood on the corner protesting the Iraq war and got honked at and told to go home. I was in BDUs, so they were honking at a soldier, telling him to get the fuck out of here. If you're not patriotic after 9/11, then you don't have a soul, apparently. And if you are, you get led into endless wars for private means, but endless wars of aggression, illegal, corrupt, whatever other descriptions we could add to them. But the people were out in the street. They were angry. We had given Barack Obama a Democratic Congress. Every single election, it seems like, has been a referendum on the war. This is insane. We knew it was insane going into it, and now even now the generals are telling us that the war in Afghanistan has reached a stalemate, and the continued loss of life on the U.S. side is no longer sustainable. Everyone told you you're going to have a Vietnam going into this. This is what we dragged the Russians into, a quagmire in Afghanistan. For them to tell us that this was unforeseen is the height of either self-deception or cynical manipulation. No. The money's already gone out of the treasury. We already have 6 trillion robbed. All the war profiteers ran away with money. All of the embezzlement and cronyism and no-bid contracts and the Halliburtons ran away with money. BP is back in Iraq now. They're back in Lebanon now, too. The brokers, political brokers, have brokered great profit for their corporate overlords and for the cronies that run within their social circle. We, the citizens, are the ones who spilt our blood and lost our public treasury. And now the military is going to say this was unforeseen. I have the exact same military in my notes on Iraq saying 1 year, 2 years in, this isn't how you wage an anti-insurgency campaign, because theirs is the science and art of warfare. They can't afford to be as wrong as after the fact they claim to be. I don't blame it completely at them. It seems like the military is taken advantage of by a private cabal within the military and without in the executive. The CIA, I found out recently, answers to the executive. It's within the executive branch. The president appoints the head of the CIA, all this other stuff. So if you look at our government like you would a corporation, we can start identifying the corruption, start tracing what faction has. We're supposed to have separation of federal, legislative, and executive. The executive, obviously, within the common era, has declared the right to wage preemptive war, which Barack Obama also defended. George Bush was one of the first to declare that really aggressively. The executive has pretty much grabbed control over our whole government, turned into a dictatorship, is my reading of it. Now, that was a rant, but still, it was. So our elections have, oh shoot, they're coming in 45 minutes. All right, I'll speed this up. Our elections have been, what I notice about propaganda and objective reality versus what's force-fed us is that when the events happen, when reality happens, and we're all traveling in this linear conception of reality that we all share. When the events happen, the excuses keep happening from them. Big lie, big excuse, big lie, big... Wait, why don't we go this way? Yeah, we're going to start here. It's backwards for you than it is for me. So, linear reality. We're all traveling along. And now events are happening. Boom, 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 boom. And then, boom, the dominant narrative comes into play. Excuse. But we're also watching these boom, boom, boom events happen. So we recognize when they give their excuses that they're so far removed from reality, they're laughable. But what happens is we keep getting distracted by not only their excuses, their big lies, and their small lies, everything in between. That by the time we get further on down here, and now we have some distance between us and objective reality. These excuses seem to have a lot more play and a lot more interference, and that's the propaganda of constructing a false narrative. The reason why this is so important to me is because I actually get to see it play out in my own life, which is an amazing for sociologists, anthropologists, political theorists, whatever the fuck it is that I've been doing all my life. It's really fucking awesome. It's like watching a dinosaur in the wild, and you study their bones all your life, but you're like, fuck, I'll never see one of these guys walking around. It's like I'm watching the big lie get force-fed to the, well, 9/11 was that. That was our JFK assassination. No real investigation. We don't know what the fuck happened, and anyone who questions the given narrative is labeled a conspiracy theorist for wanting to just investigate the truth in an open and transparent way. Because what they do is for asking questions, they beg you to give your version of the events, and then of course you're not in a position, you don't have all the facts. How can you explain why the Twin Towers fell in a very curious way, which defies logic and science? Let's just have an investigation. Why didn't we have a right investigation the first way? That's the first question. But so we have the war like that, unfolding transparently, this way to that way, unfolding transparently. That every single election since we started that fucking war was a referendum on the war. Even Donald Trump, a lot of his support came from draw down the military, drawing down these foreign wars of aggression. But that doesn't keep the political power brokers in play, and all they really care about is power, not ideals or not values. When you don't have values-based discussions, you're left with power and emotional manipulation. So Occupy Wall Street was another one. Barack Obama's chief speechwriter, Ben Rhodes, wrote a book about the Obama presidency and left out fucking Occupy Wall Street, which I'm like, oh my God, this is like leaving out the Twin Towers falling. Like, this was the largest protest possibly in the United States history. Not a word. I was like, I looked up and I saw the eraser coming down. I actually fucking have a burn mark right here. I don't know if you can see it in my forehead, where Ben Rhodes, at the bequest of Obama, Barack Obama, tried to erase me out of history. You can't really see it because I have like thick skin, but like there's this huge fucking eraser came out of the sky and just started fucking rubbing on me. And it was just amazing. I was like, what? Ben? And I looked up and I said, Ben, you need to chill. Because fucking, I am not a work of fiction. That's crazy that you have to say that in life. These things happened. Look how many people were here. And then that's one of the reasons why I hate that flag fucker Joe Rogan, who's like, oh, fucking, I love America, blah, 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 buy my shit and fucking jerk off into my flashlights. This fucking douchebag, he's like, we were a bunch of college kids. Look in here who's here. Well, first of all, this looks like the Gestapo. It looks like exactly what it is. State power cracking down on nonviolent protest. And I couldn't find the DVD where I show myself, my ass whooped, my clothes torn off of me, my chain broken. There's 6 cops who jumped on my back, beating my ass pretty much. This is all Joe Rogan has to say. There's so many videos about this. Here's this kid. He's the one who's holding the flag. I only did the first video. He's Ben and Jerry's son. Ben or Jerry, I don't know. Maybe they're a couple. But there's trust fund kids in there. There's college kids in there. But I can, since I was there, I can point out I'm the kid who came from a poor family, who ain't got shit to his name, never made more than $20,000 in a year in my lifetime. No, maybe I made 20 or 30,000 by the time I made it to 30. But until I started doing real estate, I never had shit. My parents just got evicted. So there are people like me actually living the fucking American struggle and just a disaffected artist. There were a lot of college kids there. But there were a lot of fucking other poor people just like me. There were a lot of fucking adults, old institutional, not institutional, passing down activist wisdom. There's this guy who came out who used to do the anti-nuclear protest back in the 80s. And he said, I'm just holding it down for you guys. You guys are just... There's a lot of old timers over there just trying to give us that wisdom. This guy came on a bus from across the country from like Oregon. He was like, I gotta be out here with you guys. It was so... Out of all the protests and all the politics that I've read about and I've experienced firsthand, this was the real deal. this was people in the street from every facet of society. We had the 1% over there giving us meat coats. We got multiple meat coats. This lady, she's apologizing while she's donating it, because I worked the donation box for a little bit. She's like, I know you guys don't like us, but I mean, technically, I'm the 1%, but here, you guys need it. They wanted people to break through. We were all acknowledging that objective reality is being tampered with. Maybe we don't have those words to describe it. Those are the words of my book, and that's the words of Shaz the artist. But that's what the artist is they put emotions into words that the audience couldn't find a way to express, whether it's music, whether it's visually. And my art, apparently, or what I'm working on now, is didactic. It's to explain the world, but in words that the world lacks right now. And those are my words that I'm working with right now. Objective reality. There's a war on objective reality from both the Republicans and Democrats. All power hierarchies just want to maintain their power. And in order to do that, they're erasing fucking real fucking history. Is Joe Rogan a fucking shill for like the government? No, but it's really easy to tell what he cares about. Power. He cares about growing that readership base and fucking, or else why just look at his values, and he acts according to his values. He shut down his forum recently, which people loved his forum. If you went in right as soon as he shut down his forum on Reddit and other social media sites, people were like, what the fuck? He shut down the forum? I had an account there. No warning. No, this is where it's going to be now, official home. He just shut it down. Why? What is this guy's values? Someone said he was stealing ideas from the forum. It was a liability to him. But it was only a matter of time before the next crazy comes out of his forum, because he didn't have values that people were buying into to become a Joe Rogan user, or a Joe Rogan member, or whatever the fuck you call it, or Joe Rogan, a Roganite, I don't know. But his only value is creating a power, and that's what most people want to be a celebrity just for celebrity's sake and money. And then he claims that he has these other values and virtues, but he doesn't really live by them. He lives by them maybe within a small social circle. But within the larger social circle, it becomes very apparent that he's a kill or be killed, eat or be eaten type individual, believes that we're just a bunch of idiots down here, a bunch of college kids. He doesn't question the assumptions of the people who come on that show either. Have an honest intellectual probing. Every now and then he'll catch one of these guys, but yeah, if I had to break down his personality, subservience to authority, and that's what allows him to have these blind spots where these people say some really high-level bullshit. It's high level, but it's bullshit, and then he doesn't have the tools. I relate him to, like, he likes MMA. I relate him to CM Punk fighting in the MMA. Is him trying to debate someone on a high-level discussion. He doesn't have the skill set, or maybe the ability, either trained or inborn, to compete with these guys. So he might read books, but you could tell he just doesn't have the attention span to stay on a high-level topic for a while. He doesn't have the intellectual confidence to call out a professor or a expert in their field on high-level shit. When he does, he reverts back to the emotional stuff or projections of physical strength. But you have to be very confident with your reasoning in order to call out a bullshitter, because that's what the bullshitter is going to do. They're going to rely on emotional triggering or projections of physical strength, or some sort of subscribing to authority, which then has the ability to some sort of threat, veiled or otherwise. But you have to be very calm emotionally and just secure with yourself to call that a high-level bullshitter. Because they're going to, when I watch his show with Jordan Peterson, that guy is a high-level manipulator because he's a psychologist. And a lot of them, if they're not sincere, I met some in my day, seem like all they've done is collect, whether consciously or unconsciously, tools of manipulation, which then they use in order to promote themselves. But that bugged me a lot. That's why every time those Occupy Wall Street videos and other stuff come up, and the guy who, Peter Schiff or whatever, the really odd political economist type dude, hedge fund guy who comes on Joe Rogan's every now and then, he in his video that he put up 2-3 hours, people say, come, it sounds like you agree with us more than you disagree with us, come join our movement. And someone else even tells him, I'm the 1% too, you're not the only one here. Like, every point that he says to Joe Rogan about why Occupy was stupid is disproven if you just watch that video critically. There are some knuckleheads in there, people who don't obviously articulate themselves as clearly as he does, because he has a great education. These people don't. But yeah, no, people don't listen to themselves. That's why I'm doing these too. Listen to myself. What are my blind spots? I really doubt Joe listens to his own podcast. That's why he hasn't been evolving. He's evolved his brand, but his person in the end now is the same as it was in the beginning when he was selling those fleshlights. Just trying to fucking hustle a buck. And that's why he's still doing all these ads and all this bullshit. How much money does he have? He needs all the money in the world? But there's only shinier and fancier shit. Your life has to have a purpose, and if you don't have a values-based life, then the purpose is accumulation. What is it? It's to spread the message that, hey, you guys, like he says on like his Instagram or something, I just went for a run today. You should too. If you're experiencing mental health, blah, 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 blah. It's like, really? You're a mental health dude, or is that just the cool thing for your brand right now? Because you started out with fleshlights. When did you change? When did you stop being the bro and start being the cool guy interested in mental health? I know kids change people too. You have a family, but nah, you might just be working on your brand, polishing your brand, and believing the hype. And what's interesting is you look at his early podcast, and he knew that was his blind spot and his downfall. When he talks about Michael Jackson and other celebrities, he does a lot of projection because he does a lot of honest dialogue. His stuff is truly blind spots. I don't believe that Joe has a bad heart, but his blind spots are huge. You could drive a truck through them. And yeah, I think he fears, when he was young, he feared becoming too famous, and he still does. And that is the game that he's playing. We all have the game and a cage within we trap ourselves, otherwise life wouldn't make any sense. And then now we have a predetermined path that we're on, as opposed to unlimited options, and then we have no narrative at all. That's what a narrative does. It makes meaning out of chaos. And so I believe his is a dance between fame and how famous can you get before you go crazy. And that's not a healthy dance to be on, but that's the one he's on. Playing with how big and how famous can he get before he finally loses his mind. Oh, there's another one to be on, which is to try to promote the welfare and happiness of all the people in this superorganism known as humanity. That's what he claims he's on, but his actions don't show that. Roseanne recently, for all of her fucked up crazy Roseanne shit, she reminds me a lot of my own mother. She said, Joe, now's the time. You have to stick your neck out. You have to do something. We have to do something. We all have to get out there. Joe quickly glossed over that, went on to the next topic. Just quickly, as much as he loves Roseanne, he did not want to talk about sticking his neck out, because that's not what people like Joe do. They don't put their neck on the line. He'll eat you if he has to. He said that to, what's his name? Theo Vaughn. I'd eat you. All these little hypotheticals, all these little insights into, that's why free association and speaking freely is so important. Let's really get out the subconscious. Let's speak until you're no longer in control of what you're saying, and it's just the subconscious, the monkey's just putting books off the back of the shelf. Because I want to talk about to you. I want to talk to the well-crafted books of your sentences and your representations of your ideas. I want to talk to the monkey. I want to talk to the person who talks to you and who screams when there's a noise. I want to talk to the person who writes in the diary, to the person who justifies all of your actions when you're awake, and then emotionally when you're asleep through your dreams. Joe's monkey is a very interesting person, and you see it come out and speak every now and then, and it's not noble. He doesn't. I don't know. This is my advice. All I can do is offer people my advice, and they either can correct themselves, or I stand to be corrected myself. And that's the beautiful thing about creating shared truth, is either I'm right or I get smarter through wisdom. As long as it's coming sincerely and it's not a projection of insecurity or blah, blah, blah. And I've wondered about that. Joe started about the time I would have started if I got into podcasting. We both kind of saw it, and that's why I recognize him. He's not a stupid guy. But then that's warns me a little bit, is he plays a little bit more of a goof than he is, which means that he's probably a little bit more manipulative than I give him credit for, than a lot of people give him credit for. It's easy to play the bro-ish goof. People always come at me, not always, but as I work out more, they come at me like as if I'm a bro a little bit. So I've dealt with people who play that country dumb too. I think he has a little bit of that too. There's a lot more self-interest in the man than he gives credit for, and a lot less social interest. But I've said my piece on that. So that was the raid videos. There's a lot of people. All the videos are up. They whooped our ass that night. This is Barack Obama. This is when you look up the documents on how this was organized. It was multi-city, multi-mayor. The mayor of Oakland, such a dumbass, she admitted to the media, oh yeah, we were on a conference call, and people had just slipped through the cracks, but some of the people in the media picked it up that, wait, you're on a conference call with the federal government about cracking down on Occupy Wall Street protests? And that's Barack Obama. Barack Obama tries to keep his fingerprints off of shit. He even told Ben Rhodes, when Ben said, yeah, Trump's going to be elected, he's like, just find the moral high ground. He keeps that fucking brand spotless. He's like LeBron James with that shit. He's fucking, you can't get that $1 billion Nike lifetime deal with an affair in your closet. You got to keep a clean record. But the difference is LeBron James is playing a game, and he speaks socially when he feels he has to, but Barack Obama is our narrator in chief, and all he cares about is keeping plausible deniability and a clean brand for his political power that he could then wield in the future for his dynastic ambitions. Doesn't care about the truth, not objective truth. And so we were a thorn in his side. He was being asked about Occupy all the time. So they used a fusion center, which is a fusion of federal, local, and private corporate resources in order to combat terrorism. But this is what we said about the Patriot Act. They're going to say that it's for our defense, but use it at home. And that's what you find, is that they've been spying on domestic citizens. That's why Occupy Wall Street and our crackdown is so important, is this just proves the adage and the cycle of history that war abroad is at first war at home. It's a way to, when you need to, and we see that with other countries too, when you need to stifle domestic protesting, there's no better excuse than the Alien and Sedition Acts. We had a lot of anarchists and when I'm reading anarchist history, it seems more and more that World Wars I and II were to also suppress the domestic democratic impulse. That's something that these private corporation commission put together, that there's too much domestic democratic impulse that we have to suppress. And so, well, some people might not even know what I'm talking about with the fusion centers. There's a lot of things that happened since 9/11, which allowed the executive branch of our government, but also the federal government in general, to crack down on protesters legally. And then Occupy Wall Street is where they first got to play with those toys on a wide level. And then what I find is since Occupy Wall Street, they use a lot of the tactics to break up our protest camp they've been using in society at large. So in order to stifle the democratic discussion through pushing of identity narratives, which was happening a lot to us. We were trying to get together and just talk about politics, and shit's fucked up and stuff. It sounds very general, but let's start figuring out how fucked up and what's the most important shit to prioritize. It was going to get to auditing the Federal Reserve. We already had those people. It was going to get to the, obviously, cut back military budget and these endless wars of aggression. But before we could clear the fog, when people say, what are your demands, what are your demands? It's like we've been fucking brainwashed and we've been disconnected from objective reality so long with these power brokers which only want to further their political interest and their political dynastic ambitions. We just need to fucking figure shit out. We need honest citizens speaking together in person where we know that we're not malicious agents. A lot of online shit was malicious fucking astroturfing. And then a lot of Occupy Wall Street was too. One of our rules was that you had to declare where you were getting your money from. A lot of people were in there not declaring where they were getting their money from. Union people, Soros Foundation people, I'm sure government agents. My little game was I would try to call them out. So when I found someone that I thought was being not acting in good faith, I'd be like, how long have you worked for the government? One of those questions where you can't say yes or no, just kind of like a little. But the game is to slip it in as innocuously as you can into the conversation. So in my mind, once we've had a conversation long enough, then I'm like, gotta call it more than 50% agent. Yeah, I did only like 4 or 5 people, we'd just be talking, and I'd be like, so how long have you been working for the government, though? And then you wait. Because in sales, the first person to speak loses. Same thing with women, too. Like when I, in Brooklyn this last year, I told that girl I was sitting in her bed talking. We had talked all night. We had gone for a really nice bike ride. We drank beers on her porch. So now we're sitting in her bedroom. Everyone else has gone to sleep talking. And I'm just like, you're not really going to make me sleep on the couch, are you? It was kind of cute. And I just waited. And then she was like, because she was like, and she smiled. I was like, I already got her. And then she looked away. And then she was like, okay. And it was really cute. But that's what we have, a cute little, we didn't hook up, which was good for many reasons. But I've learned, in my mind, I was like, I'm going to wait a week on this one. So I was just sleeping with her for a week, get that nice intimacy, a lot of makeout sessions. That's the nice thing about getting with young people. She was like 22, is that like you get to like make out like a young person. Everyone could use more makeout sessions in their life. And she was a very nice body too, thick. And so you have like small girls, but then you have the other end of the spectrum, where it's like sometimes it's nice just to like buffet style, like as much as you can hold, you can take out with you. Like it was just fucking. We had a very nice physical. That's why one of the reasons also when you work out is like it's nice to have a little bit of meat on you too, so that you could throw it at another person with a little bit of meat on them. Like a big guy, kind of big girl, kind of works sometimes. You both kind of. I was with a big girl once when I wasn't so big, and I felt a little bit overpowered. You want to have a little bit of momentum to throw back at them. But anyways, see how fast I've noticed this. How close is sex at any given time in my life, or in my mind? No matter what topic I'm talking about, it's usually second or third tangent out. I could keep it out of the main, but usually it's right there, second or third. It's pretty. He's always lurking. That sex. That's why I'm better in relationships. I feel like when I'm well fed, and then I can keep it to like when I wake up and when we come back at the end of the day. It's a nice bookend to life, having that morning sex, evening sex. That's what Shaz is missing, and then he takes it out in these videos where my sex life is reliving my sexual conquest pretty much my last couple months. This Tinder girl keeps fucking off and on messaging me, but anyways. There is no, we're gonna talk about this. Alright, so if I fuck this up, I'm gonna 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could do 7. We have 30 minutes now. 5 minutes a thing. And then my folks are gonna walk in the door. I'll probably stop this as soon as they walk in the door. They're probably gonna walk in the door in 30 minutes. Or 15 minutes. I could probably arrest. Oh, that's what I was saying. So, that's how this tangent all started. Tens of thousands of people around the United States, at least maybe hundreds of thousands, because we have 1,000 fucking cities. No one's done. The book hasn't come out yet. That's what I was telling my folks. I was like, no one's written this history, so this is mine to write now. I waited long enough. All right, anyone gonna speak up? Speak now or forever hold your peace. And then when I saw fucking Ben Rhodes' book, they didn't even mention us. I was like, well, fuck that. You're not erasing me out of the history books. I took too many lumps from the NYPD. I lost my laptop. I fucking have done real estate from 30 to 35 because they said get a job. I was like, okay, let's take that excuse off the table. If that's how they're going to come at us when we're saying revolution and the world's fucked up and stuff, like just look around. And they're like, get a job. Well, I just got a job. Fucking do what I do. Fucking go to New York homeless with $200 to your name and fucking turn it into 200,000. I'm going to stop taking advice from dumbasses. That's a little bit more of the aggressive shots. I could do that. You can only do that. I can only do that when I've done it. Some people can speak before they act, but the shit I talk about with women or other stuff when you're approaching a girl, because I've fucking seen some shit. The shit when like someone's saying like I'm gonna smash you in the face. It's like it won't be the first time. I know how that feels, and I also know the type of person who would do that, and I also know the type of response I'm capable of. And I also know who I am. I'm the type of guy some people get mad when they get hit. Some people get scared. I don't get mad except for when I'm being physically. That's when me and my friend, when we would wrestle when we were young. Some people don't like being dominated in all forms, and so yeah, some people like violence. Some people it hits some switch in you where you're like, this is what we're doing. Some people are rowdy by nature. So, intellectually too, we like adversity. We thrive in it. We didn't. Some people fear that. Some people fear uncomfortable situations, fear uncertainty, and then some of us want to jump right into the briar patch because that's where we were born and bred in the briar patch. That's where we feel comfortable. We feel comfortable when people are throwing punches at us or when the bodies are flying and everything, because this is what you do. This is what we do. So arguing. Some people feel uncomfortable arguing. This was my household growing up. Fucking yelling and arguing. We feel uncomfortable when it's quiet. Again, I fucking not gonna get through 7 documents this way. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the United States erased from history, from the supposed fucking Democrats. So I know that it's not like the Republicans are gonna write the fucking story of Occupy. But how does this happen? Well, hundreds of people who were arrested that night, how many people actually go to trial? Well, look, this is the people of New York's against David McNerney, 29, and all my accounts, resisting arrest. Every time they beat your ass, they call you resisting arrest. That was obviously bullshit. Obstruction of government administration, 2nd degree. As soon as they were evicted, they were given a stay to hold the eviction. We had lawyers on our side fighting for us. So that whole eviction was illegal, the trespass and the disorderly contact also wouldn't have held up. But I didn't even care about that. What I knew enough about reading history was that the court trial is a part of the protest. It's court theater. This is when you get to stand up in court and actually give your side. I hadn't read, what's his name, Acosta, the lawyer for the Brown Berets, and the guy who really tried to fight the good fight in the... I read about this when I was reading the Hunter S. Thompson book last month. In the courtroom, which later on they decided to make bombs and bomb public buildings, which sort of goes the other route. But the people who are trying to do it legally, he was one of the best doing it legally until I guess he got frustrated, or maybe it was too much speed, because speed messes with your objective sense of reality, which is dangerous to do. But also the cops were killing people indiscriminately, so he was feeling like a trapped animal. He acted like a trapped animal. But yeah, I've always felt intellectually that my gift was not to, I've wanted the confidence to be confident physically to protect myself, but my gift was always to present my opinion and my views. Malcolm X was my role model in that. If that guy could be peaceful, and he wasn't violent unnecessarily, he just protected himself, and he said in no uncertain terms that I'll protect myself by any means necessary. But if you look at his life trajectory, at the end of his life, he was trying to bring the United States on trial at the International Criminal Court for war crimes. He was going to our highest centers of authority, and he was going to expose the hypocrisy of the system. So you can't do that when you're pitching bombs. You can't. That's where the Che Guevaras and the other people can't hold a candle to those who, I don't know, this is something we'd argue about in Occupy Wall Street. People would be like, diversity of tactics. You don't want to talk bad about violence. But if you talk good about violence, you give the state an excuse now to crack down on all of us. So what's the compromise? I use the same compromise I do in the drug game. It's just fucking, my ears don't work. Keep my name out of it. I'm gonna comment on fucking people in the Caribbean doing shit that I wouldn't choose to do. Your life is your life. Just, you offer me work, I'm like, no, I don't even want to have this conversation right now. I don't, my eyes don't work and my ears don't work. I don't recognize faces and names for some reason. It's just, if that's the game that you're playing and that's what you're doing, that's cool. And that's the only way to stay alive in this game. Is sometimes in this game, in this life, is you can't be self-righteous. You just, if you don't want to participate in certain risks, then that should be my right, just to back out. But then also know when to not ask questions and not be nosy. It's not fucking, but anyways, I have other skill sets which I wish to utilize. But one of them was going to court, actually. People like me are the ones who are supposed to go to court and stand up and say, because through the process of discovery, we could find out, all right, so was the federal government involved? Were they using these fusion centers? Were they monitoring us? Some of the articles that came out said private corporations were paying, banks were paying for us to be monitored and possibly even be assassinated. There were like plans in place for possible snipers and shit. It was really weird shit. Like, they were institutional America. Occupy Wall Street shook it to its core, and there was a coordinated, active response. And if that's not described, the potential we had in order to scare institutional America and power structures that much, that there was a coordinated response. And also, if it's not described and investigated, what those responses were, not just the one in which they coordinated a raid multiple cities with multiple mayors on the phone with the federal government that's been admitted to, but there are other responses on the books ready to happen, possibly targeted assassinations. This is something that Naomi Klein was looking up. I need the resources and the time to look this up. This is part of what's going in the current book, is to tell this story. And then also the other stuff I've learned since I worked on the other stuff. Shaz, you're getting so fucking distracted though, because I had one point I was going to make at the very beginning of all this. How does a movement of tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands, maybe we wouldn't have approached 1 million at our height of the Occupy Wall Street, and this is just in the United States, but it's in concert with other movements all around the world. So this is global populist uprising. How does it get to the point that Ben Rhodes doesn't even feel like it's worth a footnote in his book about the Obama administration? How can you just not mention it at all? That's how strong the narrative control is you, it just blows my mind. Well, but then also, see that arrest? Out of hundreds that got arrested in Zuccotti Park, only about a couple dozen decided to go to trial. Out of those couple dozen that decided to go to trial, I already knew what was going to happen because I've been to court before for multiple shit. I was like, this is going to require multiple court dates. So anyone who came out to New York or who had a life or was graduating college or doing something else can't keep up this fucking court shit. This didn't drop for like 6 months. So I had to go to every month, every 2 months, we had to go to court and do another thing. So in my mind, I was already like pot committed. Like, this is cool. I'm living in New York until this is done. But not everyone lives their values like me or their politics like me, where they could just change their life around this. Out of a couple hundred who were arrested, a couple dozen decide to go to trial and don't take the plea bargains, aren't scared out of it. Out of those couple dozen, maybe fucking there were like 10 or 12 of us, maybe 14 by the end of it. And I was the only person I knew of who was actually going to represent themselves. So the Lawyers Guild of America and some other nonprofit, the legal, some good legal nonprofits were representing us for free. And this guy was nice. He was super awesome. Or maybe he was a plant. Who knows with lawyers, right? He was working pro bono until shortly after Occupy Wall Street, he went back into private practice. So it was pretty convenient. He jumped right into a position to, and also his office was right next to Zuccotti Park. But whatever, it is what it is. Michael Rooney is his name. So we could look up Michael Rooney and we will see what he's doing with his life. Let me look him up right now. See if he is who he says he is. Because Michael, I'm the same person you met back then. I've just done some fucking different things. Michael Rooney. Nah, he seemed like a sincere individual though. He even asked me about Puerto Rico and then went down there later on a vacation to where I used to live. Michael Rooney, lawyer, New York. Is it Michael Rooney? I think it's Michael Rooney. Legal Aid Society. Oh, Mike's a sweetheart. He's probably still doing the Legal Aid Society stuff. I don't know. This is where I was telling myself, Shaz, you can't be suspicious of everyone. There he is. He's currently in Legal Aid Society still. Yeah, that's cool. That's what he told me. He said that he used to do a lot of nonprofit stuff, and then he went back into private practice, but wasn't fulfilling. He really likes the nonprofit stuff. It takes a certain type of personality to be a criminal lawyer. My friend just became one, and he's a public defender in Santa Cruz. You have to be a little crazy. You have to be a little idealistic, but you also can't be too idealistic because you see a lot of shit. You have to be a little cynical. You have to be. Mike Fitz, I don't know. He was helping us out a lot, but I released him. I was like, you know what? Part of this process, I have to defend myself and speak I could just study it and not trip over my own feet. And then the fucking judge is like, you know what they say about defending yourself? You have an idiot for a client or whatever. And the judge, as he's talking to me, and I see all the other lawyers around, and I stood up and said, I'm releasing my counsel. I'm going to just defend myself. And are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Are you sure? And I'm watching the other lawyers, how everyone reacts to this judge. And this is why we need legal reform in the United States, is we have a lot of these customs which give too much respect to idiocy. We don't have enough transparency for correction. This judge, I could look him up. He was, let's find him. We're going to find him because he was a judge reprimanded New York using smartphone bench. He was like on the bench using his smartphone. But I'd have to look way back then. Shit. A lot more people are doing it now apparently, but he was one of the first. Uh, uh, yeah, no, because this is all 2018. I have to, yeah, these are, I'd have to look it up harder. It's on here, probably it's on the paperwork. But anyways, he was one of those judges, one of the first people to actually be rebuked for like, he was like tweeting or doing something from the bench, and they're like, so he's like just some dipshit guy who has the nerve to try to question me about representing myself when he's been reprimanded openly for disrespect in our judicial process by not paying it. It's like John McCain was playing pocket poker, literally, like the pocket poker machines in Congress. These people aren't in their position. The lawyer told me later, he was like, yeah, he was appointed by like some political thing in his family and this and that, but he's not the best and the brightest. You can just tell that in institutions right away. This person, I have to do that in sales or when I deal with people. Make a determination. Are they self-made? Do they believe in values and character? Or were they given things or handed things, and then they're going to have a certain assumptions that go along with it. When you don't earn it in life, you become a certain type of person. This judge didn't earn it in life, and I just like, yeah, you have a right to talk to me like this because you're up there and I'm right here, which is cool. But everyone else is so subservient to him. I'm like, this whole system is like, we need more. And then when I was doing my eviction process this year, and the judge snapped at me, and I was high as fuck because when I would go to those court things, I was just playing the little chess move game, and I'd make my move, and I know I'd delay, and I knew I was eventually, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But when the judge snapped at me, I pretty much was like, I'm done dealing with these people. Let's do the eviction. Time to do that. And that's how I ended up here. I knew I was going to end up back at my folks' house. I had to check in with them. I knew I was going to let everything go. I could beat my landlord in housing court, but I'm not the type of person who ducks debts. I owe her money. I'm going to pay her when I get the money. I don't have a doubt that I'm going to make money again in life. But she was acting kind of shitty to me, and she wasn't having the right legal paperwork, so now she has to wait for her money. Do business the right way, and you'll get paid on time. Do business the shitty way, and I have an invoice. It's a billable now. I'll get back to you. That's how corporations operate. I claim all the rights of corporations the same way I claim all the rights of human beings. This has to be a fair fight somehow. Was Shaz Barbaric the individual versus the corporations of the world? Nah. It's Shaz Barbaric Incorporated. And I'll do my restructuring and this and that the same way. I'm not going to play fast and loose with the bankruptcy laws because that's not my character. My character is to honor debts that I incur. And I incurred that debt of the apartment. That's what she was telling me. She didn't understand. She was like, but you live there. You pay the rent. Why don't you pay the rent? And I was like, yeah, but we do things the right way. You never gave me a lease. You still never gave me a lease. That's why she's going to wait for her money. But yeah, the judge then, she snapped at me. And I was like, whoa. Yeah, I'm done dealing with these people. That judge, the lawyer, this is just, every time I'd have to go to court, I'd have to deal with people that I didn't like. It's a funny way to live life. Choose to get evicted just because you didn't want to fucking talk to idiots anymore. But that's how sensitive I am to idiots, I guess. And yeah, that way of living life where I'm always sincere in the moment, makes it so my life is very interesting. A lot of things seem irrational. Everyone's like, oh, you're losing the apartment. I'm like, it was going to get lost. I couldn't stay there. I had to leave the apartment because I knew that I was a certain person in it, and I had to just check who I was outside of it. It was too nice of a thing. And it was also too shitty of a thing in a way, too. Because of the landlord's character, the apartment would never be free of roaches and rats. They would never seal the building properly or put money into the common areas. I knew enough about business and character by then. Yeah, that was just last year. Is that I wasn't buying their product. If I was going to fight long term to keep it, I was going to use the apartment for something else, but I deserve a better place to live. I was making $200,000 a year. I couldn't afford a $4,000 apartment in New York. It was a $2,600 apartment. I've, over the last couple of years, come to understand what my worth is and my value is in society compared to others, my peers, and my clients. And that apartment's a little bit below me. Real estate's a little bit below me. I'm an initiator of businesses which do well based off of values and character and culture. That's a hard-won insight. Occupy was part of it. Let's see. So, fucking A, Shaz. 10 more minutes to wrap up your point. You had a point. How do they erase tens of thousands, 100,000 people, and we're erased? The point was that this is how they erase it. Out of 100,000 people spread over 1,000 cities, there was one city that started, New York. They rated, just to be safe, the top maybe 3-5 cities that day. They rated Oakland, LA, and New York, and I think they did Hawaii and Portland maybe as well. This is all just based off memory. I might be wrong. This is November 15th. They rated us. Arrested us all. Out of the hundreds of people they arrested that night, over 500 maybe, 200, over 200 in New York alone, only a couple dozen, from my experience, were able to actually make it through the couple months to actually go to the point where we were ready to go to trial. After those after only 1 dozen, about 14 left standing, or maybe under 10. I'd have to look all these numbers up. I have people who were arrested with me. I was the only one I knew of who was willing to defend themselves and actually have, and then I can, because my freedom is as important to me as my life, which is just another bargaining chip in this crazy experiment we're doing where how honestly can you live in a time of so much repression, mentally and physically. We're going to find that line. We're going to go right up to it. We might step across it. So, Shaz Barbaric tempting fate is like, of course I would fucking tempt my freedom, but how many people have my mentality are going to go up there and use the cleverest defense possible in order to expose the most information possible about how involved was the federal government in this raid? That was going to be my angle. It was very clear, but the charges were dropped before I got my day in court, because by then, 6 months after we were raided, March, April, no, it might have been June. I'd have to look up the court documents. When it was actually dropped, might have been a year afterwards. Finally, we were out of the news, and that's what it was about. And why are they going to let Shaz go, who writes a book about revolution, have his day in court and in the press? No, the damage was done. That's how, out of hundreds of thousands of people, that's how you disappear a movement. It's just through that war of attrition. Arrest a bunch, intimidate, draw out the legal process, intimidate. After 6 months or a year, there's only a handful of people left standing. And that blows my mind. That a populist movement, possibly the largest in the United States history, to spread like that, where like we didn't send delegates to other cities to found Occupy Wall Street. They just sprung up. Everything was organic upwelling of popular protest. Well, it doesn't happen every generation even. It happens once every couple generations. And it was like the hippie summer of love thing in the 1968. This type of zeitgeist where people just come out of the woodwork. It requires like a lax economy, so you have the unemployed to come out. It requires so much corruption over time as to just make everyone disillusioned with all institutions and bureaucracies, where we just want to escape everything and come out in the street and just talk to each other. It takes a new technology, whether like, I guess a lot of people were smoking weed back then, but then what was the new technology back then? I don't know. It takes a lot of inputs for that to happen. It's just crazy. And then for it to just disappear. So let's not talk about that. It's just sort of like anarchist history in general, in the history of political discussions. Left and right, which goes back to the French Revolution and where they used to sit in the fucking houses. You're not going to talk about anarchism? How many French intellectuals I'm discovering in the history of anarchism came right out of that time period and afterwards out of France? Proudhon is one of the, if not the most articulate advocates of anarchism, and the person who actually put out a political ideology which could be quantified as anarchism. This is what it is what we believe in, this is the means by which we're going to achieve it through a collectivized bank, and then this is what we're trying to achieve actually in the end, which is like these commune type structures around society which are all related to each other in this federation or something like that. I haven't read Proudhon. I've read of him, but we talk about left and right. This fucking blows my mind. So anyway, that's why that arrest is important. That's how you distill a movement of hundreds of thousands of people down to just a couple key people you have to intimidate. And then until you fucking Ben Rhodes and his eraser comes down and tries to fucking erase Shaz out of history books. Erase these videos, Ben. Fucking erase, fuck. I said See, because I was talking about beautiful Ben. And what does he believe in? What does Ben Rhodes believe in? I like him because he's about my age. So this is like another cool life track. You went that way, I went this way, Ben. And we're going to have a conversation with each other, right? In person. And then we'll have to account for my values and the way I believe and your values and the way you believe. We'll have to have an accounting. We don't have to, but then it might be an uncomfortable conversation for you. So that'll be interesting. Communique. The Communique was, we'll end with this. And the next videos I'll just have to do more. Or I'll do more videos, what the fuck. I don't have to stop at 150. I want to stop at 150. I thought 100 was a bit much. Looks like I'm on track to hit 150. We are prisoners in a cell, but we are also prisoners in a system where political participation is hollow, economic inequality is rampant, and our commons are violently enclosed. Today we came together in resistance and solidarity because we know that we are unstoppable and another world is possible. Every day our movement grows and every day we learn. Today's attack on Liberty Plaza was an attempt to attack the heart of the movement. But we are decentralized with hearts that beat around the world. To all that occupy, continue to liberate and inspire. To the world that is watching, rise up and reclaim. Written collectively from the Men's Holding Cell, Precinct 1, New York City, November 15th, 2011. What they did is they took these flyers that were around, that you just in New York, there's always trash around and people pick up or whatever, so they took something to write on and then they scratched into it. I don't think they had a pen or they didn't have the ability to write because it had a black background. That wasn't in our holding cell. That happened in another holding cell. By that time, I had been involved with the archives, Occupy Wall Street Archives. We had all these groups popping up. And later on, I founded the Occupy Farms group to go and food justice and learn about sustainability, all this other cool shit. But I was in the archives at the time, and someone gave me that the next day, and they're like, I was starting to get a name for myself. Hey, Shaz, heard you're in archives. No, someone emailed me that. Someone took a picture of that, and he was a photographer, and he said, here, this is for the archives. And I was like, thank you. This is fucking great. We have a statement from prison when we were arrested about our belief system at the time, which sounds so revolutionary now. Back then, those values, everyone in the park, if you came, you would that's what everyone would say. That was the entry fee of walking into the park, is that you were either on that political tip or there's nothing there for you. Is that we have a commons, they're being enclosed. Whatever you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever, the internet is our commons. Even now, people accept a lot more totalitarian censorship type stuff on the internet. But back then, we were a lot more free on the internet, and our values showed it. But then also, we had the Citizens United just happen in 2010. So corporate corruption was at the forefront of everyone's minds, and democracy and the corruption of democracy and civics. Now it's behind our minds, behind the identity politics that have been pushed. But that wasn't written in my holding cell. In my holding cell, we had a bunch of protesters and me, and then we had one kid come in, a young black kid, and he wasn't a protester. He was just a fucking kid who got caught up on something, and he fucking was pacing, and I can tell his energy. I was in prison in fucking Florida. Some shit's about to go down. It's like everyone, there's a vibe to the animal pack. He walks up to one of the protesters, boom, hits him in the face, and then he walks away, and it's like, fuck. And everyone's like, oh, what's going on? Are you okay? And they try to have a little group discussion. What's going on? Or, well, I mean, like, we don't know him, but and I'm like, dude, we just need to get this guy out of here. And I called the fucking guard over. I was like, and then I told the guy who got hit, I was like, you want him out of here? And he was like, he don't want to look like a little bitch in front of his friends. I was like, whatever, he's going. I told the guard, hey, get this guy out of here. And the kid's like, I'm like, dude, you're not going to fucking hit me. It's like, I looked at him like, no, this is what's happening. And then the guard got the guy. It's like, let's separate the fucking victim and the aggressor real quick before we fucking try to intellectualize this problem about we don't want to fucking contribute to more negative patterns of cycles of violence in this kid's life just because he hit one of our friends. Like, no, dude, fucking common sense. And that's what we ran into over and over in Occupy Wall Street. Fucking ideology over common sense. Shaz out.